Welcome to episode 103 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast, coming to you Thursday, June 29th. Aaron Breitman with my rapid reaction to the fantastic news that four-star wide receiver, four-star tight end, four-star playmaker, Korey KJ Duff Jr. out of Melville, New York, has committed to Rutgers, announced a little after 7 p.m. on Thursday. And wanted to react right away to it because it's a really big get for Rutgers. Covers a few key areas. The first notable, obvious one is that he's the first four-star composite prospect to commit to Rutgers. Gabe Winovich is a four-star by some recruiting services, but is a high three-star composite per 24/7 Sports. But Korey Duff is a four-star. His rating, he's right under a 90 player rating, 89.89. He's rated the number 2 recruit in New York, number 17th tight end in the country, and number 341st prospect overall in the 2024 class. It's a big get. Obviously, perception, obviously rankings. Rutgers was ranked as a class 29th nationally in the composite rankings of 24/7 Sports before Duff Jr. committed. This is a rapid reaction, so it'll change at some point later tonight. Hopefully it goes up a few spots. They were as high as 21 earlier in the week. That's how fluid things are. They're down to number 9 in the Big Ten. They'll hopefully bump back up a little bit there. But yes, rankings are important. Yes, I'm really, really hoping Rutgers can land, a couple more, if not 3 more. Hey, if they can finish the class with 3 or 4 4-stars, that would be amazing. There's a few still out there. D.D. Holmes, edge rusher, who took an official visit. He's a guy that's still out there. Visited South Carolina. Don't sleep on him. So, obviously, that's important. But if you watch Duff's film, I honestly, I watched it several times now. He jumps off the film, and it's an unfair comparison because of what he did for the Rutgers program. But he really does look like Kenny Britt in terms of how he runs after the catch. I mean, he glides down the field, and he's tall like Britt. He's 6'5". He excels after the catch. He can hit another gear. He's a big body guy. Obviously, he's going to have to, bulk up, add some muscle. But the other thing I really like about him is he's a very good blocker. And even though he's listed as a recruit, as a tight end, if you watch most of his film, his junior season for St. Anthony's, he basically lined up as a wide receiver in a lot of the highlights that I saw. So it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. Whether it's tight end, whether it's wide receiver. But the bottom line is Rutgers got an elite playmaker in the class of 24. And that's something to be super excited about. It'll be interesting to see what they, where they envision him. But I think his blocking is very intriguing. And Rutgers has had blocking receivers in the past. I always thought Bo Melton did a really good job with that. So doesn't mean he'll end up a tight end. He did. He took an official visit to North Carolina. In addition to Rutgers, he was recruited by Miami. He had an unofficial down there. He was supposed to take an official this past weekend. I think there was some debate as to whether they would take him as a wide receiver versus a tight end. But ultimately, he didn't go. And ultimately, Rutgers landed him. He had close to 24 offers. He had over a dozen Power 5 offers. So he checks all the boxes in terms of things you want to see on paper in terms of how a recruit is analyzed and pursued. Maryland, Syracuse, Pitt, Miami, like I mentioned, Duke, Arizona State. Has some good kind of G5 schools too. East Carolina, Coastal Carolina. You also had Texas A&M, UCF, Vanderbilt, West Virginia. So Tulane, which just had a great year. So a lot of offers there. And ultimately, he's staying local. And this is just a great get. What I also like about it is now if you look at the composition of the 2024 class, 4 of the highest rated recruits in the class are on the offensive side of the ball. And, I'm not breaking any news here for Rutgers fans in saying that, that's a need. Obviously, it's a need. But when you look at, they have Gabriel Winovich from Michigan. He's a top 500 recruit. He's listed as an athlete. But the projection seems to be that he's going to be a running back. Then you have Isaiah Crumpler, who's now the third rated wide receiver. We've talked about him, his family pipelines in the NFL. Algie Crumpler, his uncle, longtime NFL tight end, both his brother and Algie is his brother. I apologize. And his father played in the NFL as well. So you have Duff Jr. at the top, then you have Winovich, then you have Crumpler. You do have Sam Robinson, who they just flipped as a linebacker, flipped him from UCF last week. And then the fifth highest rated recruit in the class is AJ Serace, quarterback, who I'm really excited about. And Rutgers is addressing some serious needs here. I think between Duff Jr., Crumpler, also Benjamin Black, who's moved up the rankings, another North Carolina wide receiver. I mean, these guys have specific traits that you need in terms of athleticism, speed, great hands, playmaking ability. They all three have it in the pass game. And, I haven't gone back and looked at every class, but this feels like the best haul in terms of pass catching playmakers that Rutgers has gotten in a long time. I'm not going to make some proclamation as to when, but it feels like for a long time. And that's really exciting. They do have some good young receivers, in the mix right now on the roster. Dylan Breathwaite's new. Ian Strong. You have Chris Long shows some potential. Rashad Rochelle, we've talked about him. I'm sure I'm missing a couple names as well. But, these three guys as a group in the 24 recruiting class, I think it's exciting when you look at all three of them together. If you watch their film, they can all make plays. They can all excel after the catch, accelerate after the catch. They can all take hits. They can all catch in tight windows. They can run across the middle. They have size. In terms of Duff Jr., Crumpler and Black are a little bit smaller, 6'1", but they offer different skill sets. I do think Black will probably end up as a slot receiver. I think Crumpler has big play potential, and then I also think Duff Jr. He could end up at tight end. He could end up as the other receiver on the other side. He just looks like he's going to play from day one, and he can make plays right away. His stats are pretty ridiculous and pretty consistent. I mean, when you look at what he did as a sophomore, his stats were 35 catches, 682 yards, 5 touchdowns. Then he improved to 42 catches, 995 yards, and 12 touchdowns as a junior. So he averaged, 19 plus yards a catch as a sophomore, 23 plus yards a catch as a junior. And this is just in 9 games as a sophomore, 10 games as a junior. So he's explosive. He's dominant. He averaged 100 yards receiving in high school as a junior. That's pretty rare. And I just can't say enough. I in my commit post, I have his film. Definitely check it out. But I think we're seeing, the Kirk Shiraka effect. I think we're seeing the Dave Brock effect in recruiting. Who wouldn't, if you're an up-and-coming wide receiver, how would you not want to play for Dave Brock, who, mentored and coached Hakeem Nicks from North Carolina, Kenny Britt from Rutgers, Marquise Colston from Hofstra. He was on the Atlanta coaching staff, with Julio Jones as a wide receiver coach. Then you have John Perry, who's a quality control coach back with Rutgers. He coached the tight ends and the receivers for the Texans. So he had, and that's in somewhat recent times, 15 to 20. So he had a ton of success in the pros as well. So, 2 great coaches to mentor this young group. And hopefully we see Wimsatt take a step this year. We have Serace coming in, and really excited about the potential for both of them. And I think I know that Shiraka is conservative, but at the same time, listen, to win in the Big Ten, Freudian slip, to win in the Big Ten, I was thinking Big Ten East, but to win in the Big Ten, now that the East is going away, you have to be able to make plays through the air. You have to. You can't just rely on the run. And I think that's going to be interesting to watch, by the way, in terms of Shiraka's adaptation from Minnesota, where in the West, I think you could kind of muscle other teams more so. I think to win in the East this year, and then also next year. I mean, they play everyone in the East except Indiana, and you keep Iowa, you add UCLA. I mean, they're going to have to throw the ball at times. Yes, you're going to have ball control, but the offensive line, as we know, is a work in progress. You have to have targets in the passing game. It's a concern going into this season. Talked about the three additions through the transfer portal that they have gotten in terms of Sean Bowman, in terms of Jaquay Jackson, the Division II All-American, then Nassim Brantley, the FCS All-Conference player, as well as Bowman, who's FCS All-Conference. So those are three, older receivers, but are unproven at the FBS level, but they certainly were great additions in the transfer portal. And now you have young blood coming in behind them, in addition to the other young receivers you have on the roster. So I think it's just a really exciting thing. And I love that they've really not only, obviously, they prioritized offensive players in this class, but they're actually getting really exciting prospects in the class on the offensive side of the ball for the future. So in closing, I've talked a lot about the need for the class right now. That I felt like they were tracking more like a top 40, top 45 class. Obviously, adding a player of Duff's rating and also potential is huge. Again, you separate the ratings from the potential, from the fit, and I think it's a home run in terms of fit, in terms of getting this type of player into the offense, getting him to be able to work under such experienced and successful coaches. I mean, how many times can we? Let's dream about how many times we're going to hear Sir Race to Duff Jr. from Chris Carlin over the radio over the years. I mean, is it 10, 20, maybe more than that? I don't know. Maybe I'm being crazy, but this one feels like this one feels like it's gonna count in a big way and make a big impact in the future. So very excited about it. Rutgers football recruiting for 2024. They now have 20 commits. Again, not sure how many spots they may have. You also have to factor in the transfer portal. You would imagine, roughly they'll finish around 25. And the timeline has changed nowadays, and with the early signing period in December, and I think the staff getting the class locked up as much as possible before the start of the season is important. Obviously, you want to have a really good September, but today is a good day. So very excited about Korey Duff Jr. added to the mix, and the offensive talent that Rutgers is, and there's some great defensive talent in the class too. But this is a big one. You gotta, you have to have some elite talent mixed in with some good talent that are plans to develop them into starters and big time contributors. But Korey Duff Jr. jumps off the video tape. Just watch him, and really excited about him. And thank you for watching and listening once again to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow.